Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it, It's Not Where to Look, but Who is Looking? It's based on a question somebody asked me on one of the videos in the Spanish channel, and the person says, Nick, please point me out where to look. This character is from Venezuela and feels afraid. Okay, in case you're not aware of, if you're watching this video, well, technically speaking, right now is the 2nd of July or 3rd, but in June last month, 2026, Venezuela had two big earthquakes, and there was a lot of devastation, and a lot of people, made their transition, and there's a lot of fear seems to be in that area. So I want to make something clear. These videos are not making light of a situation like that. And we're not going to talk about, well, there's no me, there's no you, so there's no non-duality, nothing means anything and everything, because that would be very inhuman, I would say like that, unkind, and I would not point in that direction. That's not what these videos are about. However, we have to recognize that these videos are pointing to the nature of our being, which have nothing to do with the world of appearances. And I'm going to address this question being, again, sensible and conscious, but again, we need to see where the information is pointing to, so hopefully it can be of service to this person. If the person is not ready to receive the information right now, well, maybe this video may help somebody else. Remember, there's no others, there's only what is, but once again, within this context, this is what appears to be. So I'm going to address this question, this issue, very simply, always pointing to the fact that I am never losing sight of our reality of as that which words cannot describe. So what the person asks, the person says, again, Nick, please point me out where to look. This character is from Venezuela and feels afraid. Well, the thing about it is that the question already comes from a false premise, which is as a me that now has to find out where to look. And a lot of times, this idea of where to look is another way of reject the feeling, the thought, the sensation, whatever, and is trying to look in a different direction to feel better. But that is all for the character, not for consciousness or beingness. Beingness simply is. And what I always say is that when you find yourself experiencing fear or whatever concern, whatever the case may be, all of that is just simply an invitation to turn again inward, not to hide, but to turn inwards, meaning just withdrawing meaning onto everything. Because if you look at this particular question, the person says, where to look, I am afraid. Okay, if the person is watching this video right now, I would ask, are you afraid right now? Right now, are you feeling afraid? And maybe you don't. You see, because the question was asked, I don't know, a few days ago. So maybe, again, I'm pretty sure that you're not afraid all the time. So if you're not afraid right now, that gives testimony that you just had an experience, a feeling, a sensation that may have come through, but is no longer with you. It may come again as a result of the conditioning, but if you're not afraid right now, it shows you beyond the shadow of a doubt that is not something permanent and has nothing to do with you. It's just simply part of the play. We all have days that sometimes we feel one way and then we feel another. That's what it says, that the character, the seeming me that I claim to be, which is just a projection in what is never consistent. Because in the morning I can feel one way and in the afternoon I can feel differently. And that is not consistency. But what is that in which feeling good in the morning or feeling bad in the morning and then feeling good in the afternoon or feeling bad in the afternoon, what is that in which all those feelings appear and disappear? That's where these videos are pointing to. Because if I were to tell you where to look, we keep feeding the sense of a me that now is trying to look. In other words, trying to feed the same mind that supposedly project the illusion to try now feel better by looking in a different direction, positive thinking, negative thinking or so. All of that is distraction because it keeps keep the attention in the thought, in the mind. But what you are is not the mind, is not the thought. You simply are. You follow? So right now, whatever may be taking place, when you don't believe the content of the mind, always knowing these videos are paradoxical. You will do that if you're supposed to do it, and you won't if you're not supposed to, because you're not in charge, you're not the doer. However, within the play, it seems as though there's some me suggesting don't believe the content of the mind, so just play along. That's all, as if you could. So right now, if you don't believe the thoughts, if you don't believe the content of the mind, what remains? See, I'm pointing to what remains. I'm not asking you to understand it. I'm just simply pointing to what have always been. See, when you're sleeping and you're dreaming and you're finding in the dream some situation happen, difficult situation, and you're experiencing fear, and let's say that I'm next to you in bed, what am I going to do? Get in the dream with you and try to fix the problem there? No, all I'm going to say is, sweetheart, shh, relax. You're safe. See, you're at home. You're safe at home. You're safe at home. There's nothing to be concerned. As the words begin to penetrate, you begin to withdraw the attention from the illusion, and now you're more identified with the words that are saying, I'm home. I am home. You see, you return back to this. I am home. You return home. Because you are already home. So you're not returning anyway, but it's just a play on words. Well, right now, at all times, you're home. But you're believing to be somewhere else by being distracted by the stories and everything. And again, look, Nick, where do I point? No, that's just a thought that is being judged, and now you're trying to come up with another thought that makes you feel better, but that keeps feeding the belief in the character. Life is simply life, and you are life. It just so happens that as you believe that you're this seeming separate character, it seems as though you're at the mercy of whatever the perceptions will show you. But in the end, it's very simple. We come back here. These videos are only to come back here, to point back to here, nothing else. How will the issues in the world or your experience will be solved? You just watch how they are solving themselves, or maybe you might find yourself doing something about it. But you're resting in what is, and that is the peace that surpasses all understanding, which is the practicality of what these videos are pointing to. Because you're not finding peace, you are that peace right now, and we can put it to the test. This is not theory. I'm not here giving you information so in the future you'll experience something. Granted, you may have to practice it enough until the letting go of the fear of releasing this false identity can be there, because again, this identity is what we believe we are, and the fear is of letting it go. And that's why the question is, I want to still feel like a separate entity, but I want to feel better, so please tell me where to look. But here it's not about where to look. Here the question is, who is looking? You follow? So right now, if you don't believe any thoughts, what remains? Don't answer. If you answer, you went back to the mind, because the mind is fighting for its survival. And the mind is a thought. It's actually the rest of it. Just a thought that appears. But it disintegrates if it's not fed. So once again, you see, what remains? But the problem happens all the time is that you think that I'm talking to you, the person, and you from the perspective of the individual, you're trying to, okay, let's see what remains as a person, as a me. You see, this is the little trap. When Nisargadatta Mahara used to point constantly, you rest in I am, again, the mind turns that into another exercise. I'm going to rest in I am, because he's trying to control, he's trying to manipulate the situation. If I rest in the I am, this feeling will go away. We're not fighting the feelings, we're just being with what is. Because all of it is all-encompassing. It's universal. So right now, if you don't believe the contents, if you don't believe any thoughts, let them be. Notice, you will notice that what remains is what is. And the thoughts may be there or may be gone. That's fine. Well, sooner or later they have to go because they just come and go. They don't stay. The illusion that they stay is because you're, by habit or so. If there's a conditioning that I'm a victim, well, the victim needs evidence, and he will continue to hold on to that. But that's fine. We're not trying to. Here, this is not about you letting go of the victimhood mentality. This is about surrendering to what is, and then everything that is not in accordance will fall by the wayside. But once again, this is not for the individual. It's like Datta Maharaj used to point out all the time, just be. That's it. So right now, let's put it to the test. Right now, if you don't believe any thoughts, just right now, you don't have to close your eyes because, again, this is just living. Right now. If you don't believe any thoughts, just what remains? Just notice. Now let me ask you, if that which remains, is it experiencing fear? You see? Without the story, all that there is what is. I'll give you an example. A few days ago, I was having a lot of movement. I don't know what was going on, but it was very strange. I was feeling that agitation and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's part of the human experience, So the agitation was felt, and all I did is what I always do, just remain here. The mind tries to solve, what does it mean? I don't know. All I know is that there was agitation, and there were stories that the mind will conjure up to try to make believe that that's why I feel the way I did. And that's all. And then in the afternoon, I started feeling different. I noticed the feeling was shifting, Then I went to bed at night, and the next day I woke up renewed, like if nothing had happened. And maybe these feelings may come again. I don't know, because I'm not controlling any of them. But what I'm saying is that there's a recognition that all that there is what is, and feelings appear or seem to appear and disappear. Sensations, thoughts, images, circumstances, sounds. See, it's all a combination of appearances and disappearances, but in what do they appear in? See? Well, they appear in you. This is it. This is you. That's what the fourth book, I am, in which everything seems to appear and disappear. Well, we're pointing to the I am, and the I am is this. This is not a mystery. This is the most obvious thing that is so easily overlooked. Because there's a belief that I'm this separate character, and I want to put all this stuff into practice so that the character feels better or different or whatever. In other words, to keep feeding the belief in the character. See? And yes, if something can be done so the character can feel better, that will happen organically anyway, because you're not doing anything. So I'm not hearing this. There's nothing wrong with doing something so that you can feel better. We're talking about the distraction, because if you still believe you need to do A, B, or C to feel better, then you're going to have to experience the opposite. And in this case, the opposite is I am fear, I'm afraid. Well, if you keep feeding the other part of it, then that comes with it, because this is part of the equation of the human experience, dualism. You cannot have up without the down. You cannot have light without the dark. See, you cannot have pleasure without the pain. But there's a way of living that experience without identifying with any of the two opposite poles. And you rest in the center, in the middle of what is, in which all of this can be seen. And of course, depends on the conditioning or whatever. You practice this, we'll keep doing it over and over again until it becomes second nature, which is your second nature, by the way. That's why the Bible says forgive 70 times 7, and the Course in Miracles says choose again. They're saying the same thing. All that there is this, you see. But this is not for the individual. Again, this is the trap. The hope is that you understand that this is not for you, the individual. This is just a recognition of the fact that I am. The individual is part of the play. And again, we don't want to let go of the individual. We want a better, a different, a more comfortable individual. Well, these videos are not for that. These videos are not to fix the individual. I'm not telling you where to look or not to look, like the person asked me over here. No, there's nowhere to look. If anything, it's just not judge. When you don't judge the experience, then you're looking. When you're judging the experience, you're no longer looking, and you are experiencing the effect of that judgment. You know, I say this, I know this can be a little concerning to some people, but I'll say it anyway because that's how I feel that life is leaving me, so to speak. Would you be willing to disappear to the point that you don't care if anybody knows that you exist? Well, believe it or not, that's how I feel. But it just so happens that life is putting me to make videos and all that kind of stuff. So you may say, yeah, but why do you keep making videos? Well, this is something that is happening. I'm not in control of this. You see? But when I go to bed at night, I don't know if I'm going to wake up the next morning. You see? I just see that life is unfolding, and right now I have me making videos. This is part of what I'm supposed to do. Yesterday I started mixing one song that I'll be putting up pretty soon, another rock song, and I've had that song sitting there for the longest time, for months, since, I don't know, since November last year, and now we're in July. But yesterday I had the feeling, and want to mix that song. So I'm just going to be mixing this song, and I started doing that. So when I finish it, that'll be another song that I'll put on my website. I'll let you know when it comes up. And I don't know, writing books and everything, when it's supposed to be written there, they write themselves, so to speak, But I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it. Somebody asked me about a book. It's called Selling for the New Millennium, which when I used to be in the self-help, which is a very conscious book, but still is part of the self-help. Somebody asked me for it, so I have to dig into and find that and just send it to him. It's a him, I believe so. And then I said, you know what? Why don't you put this book on the market again? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that always what we're pointing to is to the fact that I am. This is all that this is it. You are. You cannot not be. There's no need to look in a particular direction. It's always about the investigation that who am I? And it's not the mind that investigates it. See, the mind doesn't go, who am I? Because the mind itself is going to try to find something that cannot be found, because the mind is the obstacle to the fact that I am. But at the beginning, again, we can start with conceptual, which in this case, the conceptual instruction would be, right now, if you don't believe any thoughts, what remains? See, that is conceptual instructions. But they're not pointing to an answer, they're pointing to the obvious. The obvious is that I am. You are being right now. You see? And notice that in the beingness, there's no questions as to where do I look or whatever. That's irrelevant. In the beingness, you are. Well, this is the invitation. The invitation is always to sit, to rest here. That's it. And life will unfold as it will, and there'll be all kinds of experiences, sensations, and everything. But now you rest as that in which all of that seems to appear. You see? And right now you are being that. You see? Right now. Just don't believe any thoughts. Again, you don't need to close your eyes for this, because I don't want to turn this into kind of a practice. I'm just simply pointing to the obvious right now. As looking happens, you're not even looking happens. Hearing happens. Feeling happens. And yet, I am. And that's all there is. And well, this is inspiration that came through. I hope it served. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can become evident.